So we're going to take a look at Google Forms for this tool of the week. Google Forms is a way to create formative assessments or surveys. It's in the Google Apps suite, so it's easy to get to, easy to save in your Google Drive. Also added a couple new features recently. One of those features is to be able to have it auto grade. Okay, so let's take a look at it. You're going to create your own Google form this week. So the first thing you want to do is go to google.com, and when you get there, you want to click on the 9 boxes in the upper right hand corner, which is your apps tab, and then you're going to select Drive. Okay, so once you get to Drive, you should see a new button on the left hand side, and when you click on new, if you go down to More, you're going to go over to Forms. So all Google Forms look the same to start out with, this purple background. We can of course change all of that. Also, after you open your form, if you take a back arrow up in the left-hand corner, it will actually show you some templates that are available for forms. So for instance, if you decided, and I can go more up here and see all the options, if you decided you wanted to do an exit ticket for a class or an assessment or a worksheet or a course evaluation, you can see on here that you've got lots of things to sort of get you started. So you don't necessarily have to start with scratch or from scratch, okay? So I'm going to go back into just starting a new one and show you all the features. So the first thing you're going to want to do is give your form a title. And notice that if you click then in the upper left-hand corner, that title that you gave it down here is going to also appear up in the left. Okay, now your question comes next. You've got lots of different question types and forms. Only some of them are forms going to be able to check for you. Okay, so think about that. It can't auto grade, for instance, a paragraph answer. It has to be something that has a correct answer and is easy for it to grade. All right, but we've got short answer, paragraph answer, multiple choice. Check boxes is where you can select more than one of a multiple choice question. There's a drop down type of question. Linear scale, which gives you the ability to rate something between 1 and 5, or you can change that number to 10, I believe is the highest it goes. There is a multiple choice grid type of question where you can have rows and columns, and that's when you want to ask sort of multiple questions within one. And then there's also date and time questions. The only time I've ever used those are when I had to set up appointments, and I did it via a Google form and asked people to say what date and time they preferred. Also notice anytime you write a question, at the bottom you have the option to require that question. Okay, so for any type of question that you write, you can require an answer for it. What that means is that the student is not able to submit the assessment until every question is completed. Okay, so whether or not you want to do that, up to you. Also keep in mind that if you are truly writing this as an assessment for students, the first question you're going to want is name. Because you want to make sure that it's not going to be anonymous if you actually plan on grading it. So for name questions, just select short answer, and they will just have enough room to put their name. And then of course you're going to want to require that question. Okay, so notice down here, anytime you build a question, you have different options. Data validation is an option, and it changes for each question. You can also put in a description if you want. So if there's directions that go along with your question, you can add that part in or remove it just as easily. Also easy to delete a question by hitting the trash, or copy a question. If you have a number of questions that are going to be similar, you can just duplicate and then edit. Okay, so also let's put a couple questions in here to get us started, just so that you can see some examples. Over here on the right, I have a plus sign, and that's going to allow me to add a question. So let's add a multiple choice question. Let's see, let's add something just silly, but that has a real answer, okay? And you can see that it's really easy to add additional options here. And again, I could require this question if I wanted to. Okay. Now, also over here on the right, I can add a title and description right here if I want to. Why would I want to do that? Maybe I have multiple sections in my assessment and I want a section that's called multiple choice and I want a section that's called true false. I could do stuff like that. The other thing you can do on any multiple choice type of question is you can actually lead them to another page in your assessment if you'd like. Okay, so notice here, now I get the option go to section based on answer. So you can actually create some pretty complex assessments within this tool or surveys within this tool. You can also, when you're dealing with multiple choice, allow for shuffling option order, which means that students are going to get the same question, but the order of the answers will be shuffled. However, you can also shuffle all questions, and I'll show you how to do that shortly. Okay, so notice those tools are there. Also notice here on the right as well, you can add in an image, you can add in a video if you want to, and here's where you would add a section or a multiple page to your assessment. Okay, up here we have a color palette. I don't like the purple, so I'm going to change it, and I'm going to go in here to the background pictures and select one of those instead. Spice it up a little bit. Okay, so maybe I want just kids, and it looks like it's taking a little bit to load my options here. I apologize for that. There we go. I'm just going to select some balloons, but you'll notice that there's lots and lots of different options within these, and there's different categories on the left hand side here. Okay, so I'm just going to select that just to give it a better look, and it will load that look in a second. There you go. Okay, also up here I have a preview button so that anytime I can click the preview button and see what my students are going to see. Notice it didn't mess with my original form, it just opened it in another tab. So I'm just going to X out of that. And now I've got a settings button. Okay, so settings button is probably one of the most important here. General settings, I can require a sign-in if I want to. If you're going to do that, you want to make sure everybody has a Google account. Okay, so I'm not always going to use that. I can also say that respondents can edit after they submit or see a summary of charts and text responses after they submit, so all up to you. You also have a presentation button, so what is the quiz going to look like? Okay, so for instance, if it's going to be a really long assessment, maybe 50 questions, I might want to show a progress bar at the bottom so that students know how far they have to go in the test. I can also shuffle the question order right here. So if I have lots of questions and I want to make sure that students aren't cheating off of each other, I can do that so that they're probably going to be on different questions at different times. Also, I can access or give the option to show a link to submit another response. So that's totally up to you. You can also do a confirmation message so that once the student completes the test, you could have a message pop up when they hit submit. Okay, so kind of up to you what you want to do there. Here's the quizzes section. So if you actually wanted to do this and have it auto grade, you have to turn it on right here. Okay, so you would have to click and say make this a quiz, and then you decide when you want to release the grade and what do you want your respondents to see. Okay, so you have the options to release it immediately after they submit it, or maybe you don't want to release it because you're going on it over it in class the next day, and maybe you have a period of students later in the day taking the same quiz. So that's totally up to you. You can also decide here what respondents can see. Do you want them to see missed questions? Do you want them to see correct answers? Do you want them to see point values, for instance? Okay, so say that's what I decided and I hit save there. Now notice after I do that, on questions where there could be a correct answer, it's going to have answer key at the bottom. So what I would have to do is I would click down here on answer key, and I'm going to hit what my correct answer is, and then up in the corner I'm going to select the number of points that I want that to be worth. Okay, so pretty straightforward on building an assessment here. A couple other buttons I want to show you. To the right of the send button, you have the availability to make a copy of your assessment. You could also print your assessment, or you could add a collaborator. So like all Google tools, you are able to collaborate even in forms. All right. The other important button here is the send button, because when you actually use this assessment for your students, you have to have a way to get it to them. Now, best way to get it to them is use Google Classroom, because you can upload it straight from your drive into Classroom and they don't have to go anywhere. You don't need a link, anything like that. All right. But in this class, we're not all on the same domain, so we can't all have a common Google Classroom together. We'll get to that later in the semester so that you can see what it looks like. But what I'm going to do, and this is what I would do if I were sending it to parents, is I'm going to send it out via a link. Now, why am I not selecting email? Very important. If you select email, that means that everybody you email needs to have a Google account in order to complete the form. Okay, so you don't want to do that because you don't know whether or not they have Gmail accounts. All right, so you would want to send it via a link, and you would just copy the link here. And then you would go out and paste the link into an email and write up, here's the assessment for blah, 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 and, ask people to complete it. All right. So that is indeed where you are going to find the link that you're going to then paste into the Google Doc to share it with all of us so that we can see each other's assessments and so that you can get a grade for this. Okay. So if you have any problems with forms, please reach out and let me know. It is pretty straightforward. You shouldn't have too much to deal with here. If you have anything that you just want to look for your own answer on, there is help and feedback in the bottom right hand corner. Notice you can also report a problem if you have a problem with it when you're doing it, or you could take a tour of forms just to see all of the options, most of which I probably just showed you. Okay. The other thing I need to add on to this, and this is not something that you're going to have to do for this particular assignment, but when you create a form, where do your answers go? That's very important. So you actually have a responses tab. Okay. Once you get responses in here, this number will change. So if I went up out here and I did preview, and I started just making up some answers here and hit submit. And then let's see, I'm going to go back a couple here. I want to go, all right, let's preview it again. Okay. And let's put Sally Smith in this time, and maybe Sally thinks that August is the right answer, and we're going to hit submit there. Okay, so now when I'm in my form, you will see that I indeed have 2 responses, and when I click on that, I get this nice feedback at the bottom. Okay, so now if you had more feedback in this, it's going to get more fancy. You would probably get like a pie chart or something like that with the distribution on it. Okay, for this part down here. Notice that I can also just pull up individual answers. Okay, and then over here, and I can sort them. Over here, I have access to a spreadsheet. Okay, what I want to do is I want to put all of my answers into one spreadsheet so they're very neatly done for me. If I have lots of students, I can still have all that information in one place. So I would say, in this case, I would create a new spreadsheet. You could also select an existing spreadsheet. So let me give you an example. If I have a first period class and I plan on using Google Forms for them like maybe once a week or once a month, maybe I want all of period 1's information to go into one spreadsheet. All that's going to do is it's going to create a new tab for me in the spreadsheet at the bottom of the page, just like you've seen done in Excel. This is going to create it in Google Sheets, which is the compatible Google tool to Excel. Okay, so I'm just going to say we want to create a new one in this case, hit the create button. It'll take me out and show me what that spreadsheet's going to look like. Okay, so in this case, I only have a couple questions going. You can see that your score is right there because I did select to auto grade it. All right, so everything's pretty straightforward here, I think, and let me know again if you have any questions. To get back to your form, you can just click on the other tab. Thank you.